Welcome to episode 3 of my weekly world conflict news update. So the last one, I'm not going to really do much, but I would suggest watching it. The series has been doing pretty well. It's better than just gameplay, kind of brings more of a realistic approach to things, and gives you guys some information that you may or may not already have. So, this, just forewarning, this may be the last episode in a little bit. I don't know how long, but I will be returning to college soon, so I will have less time to record, and I do not know if I will record in my dorm room. So we will see about that. But to start, obviously the big news that happened over this week was we learned that Australia will be joining the UK and the US in its naval mission in the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, this is a big challenge to um, Iran. This is a big challenge to kind of that Iran Hezbollah Houthi alliance that they have going, trying to vie for control in the Middle East. And obviously, we'll see a lot about that in a little bit. But this is a big deal that more countries are joining in. It shows the U.S. obviously has backing. Bahrain said that it'll also join on a bigger deal, but still, I mean, they obviously are pretty close to Iran, and they obviously are very anti-Iran, so it makes sense for them to join. My thoughts on this obviously is this will put a lot more pressure on Iran to try to not seize more tankers or any ships that they do not own, because doing so would obviously cause more international tension and could very likely result in some sort of conflict, whether it's, small scale or even a larger scale conflict, which should be less likely but still possible. Um, but we've also seen not only, US Iran relations kind of happening straight from Hormuz, but also in Iraq, where we learned that a paramilitary group that's very pro-Iran, was trained by Iran, has a lot of Iran backings, was attacked multiple times at its militia bases by rockets and other forces. The U.S. and Israel apparently are being blamed for it, which is obviously, and probably is true, but it's because the U.S. is trying to counter Iranian influence in this area. I don't know too much about this, obviously, so I'm going to go over a few of the things. So they're Shiite, obviously the same religion as Iran, um, backed by Iran. They are saying that the U.S. had allowed 4 Israeli drones to enter the region, occupying U.S. forces and carry out missions on Iraqi territory. I would probably believe that is true. We know for a fact that Israel does not care about sovereignty, which is in many cases fine because they are doing it to protect their own region and their own people. And these types of groups obviously threaten Israel's existence, including Iran, so it makes sense for them to do this. What comes to mind, obviously, is I believe the 2004, 2003, I think it was, U.S. or the 2004, 2003 Israeli bombing of the Iraqi, what's called, nuclear powered, um, whatever, nuclear powered, factory. Late words don't come to mind. But if it comes to mind, obviously, I'll try to explain more. But yeah, so Israel obviously is doing what means to them to defend their territory against potential groups that threaten their existence. So we'll see where that goes. Obviously, it's just throwing fire into flames that's already growing. Oh, reactor, that's the word that comes to mind. They destroyed a Iraqi nuclear reactor when it belonged to Saddam Hussein. um, a lot of the topics this week are obviously in the Middle East because Middle East is always popping with new activity, and that's where we go next, where we see this happening, a possible end to the Afghanistan war after 18 years. Um, my thoughts on this is obviously I would like a peace, but I do not think that the Taliban will honor all agreements, and they're very known to breaking ceasefire agreements in the past, so I doubt that they will be following through with this. But we'll see. I think the talks involve offering Iran's, or not Iran, the Taliban some sort of representation government in return for them to stop leading a campaign against Afghanistan. Um, So we'll see what happens there, but obviously, there's 14,000 US troops in Afghanistan, give or take that, and then thousands more in NATO, and just pulling them all out, which the Taliban wants, is not something that can just happen in a day. It's a very complicated process and it takes time. So, you know, if this happens and peace goes through, kudos to Trump and their administration and also the peace talkers, because this is obviously something that has been talked about for years and could potentially actually happen soon. So we'll see. But obviously this happens and it doesn't really, give a shining light that they're still active, and two service members dying in an explosion obviously kind of shows that it's not winding down and there's still active fighting, and there's obviously issues that could erupt with what happened in Iraq. When it comes to mind is when we pulled troops out of there in 2012, it kind of let ISIS grow, and ISIS still very much exists in Afghanistan, much more than it exists in Syria and Iraq today. So pulling troops out obviously could lead to a black hole where a bunch of radical groups take charge and start taking pieces of land and recruiting people who are ideologically against what the U.S. and democratic forces are. So I don't know. It's obviously an interesting topic, and I will try to pursue this as much as I can. And speaking of Syria, here we are with another big news. This is important because Syria's rebels, the ones against Assad's government, withdrew from Khan, I believe it's pronounced. Um, and obviously they're calling it a key town. It's not key in any way. What it did is it basically created what I'll show you right here, a pocket. Okay. Now the thing with this pocket is inside this pocket I will is this, and that is a Turkish observation post. So Turkey set these basically fort-esque buildings up around the Syrian border. If I can pull up something, never mind. I'll just kind of show you. But yeah, like this, they have these Turkish opposition posts around the border. This is the first one to be surrounded by Russian, Syrian, Iranian troops. And if I can read correctly, I believe Turkey said that they are not going to abandon it and they will continue to operate it. So with Russia helping more and more, it's more likely that we'll see that, these people are getting condensed and condensed. They used to control Aleppo, then they lost it. They controlled Hama, they controlled all the way down here. They controlled a lot of land, but they're losing it. The SAA, which is the Syrian Arab Army, is definitely suppressing this rebellion in Syria, and it's looking likely that they'll probably take Idlib, which is their kind of de facto capital where they all meet and group up, sooner rather than later. And if this pocket falls in with the Turkish observation post, I mean, Turkey will just build a new one. That's going to be their new one, but it'll just keep getting pushed back, and Turkish troops will die, which will bring Turkey more and more into this conflict. And what also will likely happen is we'll see more inter-city fighting, which obviously in Aleppo lasted a long time and resulted in thousands dead. So, we'll see what happens there. And there's two more topics that we can talk about just because this is a big one. A British consulate employee in Hong Kong was arrested by Chinese government. Obviously, this adds more fuel to the fire and definitely doesn't bring a shining light to them. I don't know if they said this employee is a Hong Kong citizen, not a UK, so he's Chinese. This is purely internal Chinese affair. If they end up deporting him to mainland China, that's kind of what this bill that the protest started would do. It would obviously cause the protest to grow and obviously cause more international pressure towards China. I'm saying obviously, but you guys might not know, so I'll try to stop with that. He was detained for violating Security Administration Punishment Law, which covers a range of offenses deemed too minor to be crimes. It's used preliminary measure to allow police to investigate subjects. So basically, they're coming up with something to investigate them so that they can find a crime. They're basically fabricating a crime, not fabricating, but they're digging into something, hoping they strike gold. That's what they're trying to do. They're also trying to scare the British into trying to back out of Hong Kong, because obviously Hong Kong is starting to be more and more consumed by, protest movements. It's been taken to a standstill, police station, government. It's hard to get anything done there without, protests going on. Last weekend, there was 1.9 million people protesting, which is showing that the movement is still not dead, and obviously won't be dead for a long time. And I said obviously again, of course. And I said of course. I'm just so repetitive. But we'll see where this goes. This will be an interesting development to follow, because the British obviously have high stakes in Hong Kong, considering it's their last territory. I hate myself for saying that word again. I will not even say it. I promise. So, Hong Kong's movement is pushed by young people. We know this. A lot of the people getting arrested are teens to young adults, people under the age of 30. You know, I didn't say but regardless, here's what I want to end this Hong Kong debacle with. Um, the idea that, it's week 11 of the anti-government protests, and we're still seeing, Chinese government build up. Luckily, I haven't done anything yet, so that the movement can continue, and I hope that all things go well, and I hope that this movement results in what they're looking for. Lastly, we will go with kind of a fun topic instead of war and death and many things. US, my country, is trying to buy Greenland. Now, here, I am fully for this for obvious reasons. Greenland has a very big strategic interest. It's not only good to counter China, who's been trying to influence Greenland by building airports. It's got great... We've already got a military base there, too. It's got great resources that are untapped under glaciers, and as those glaciers obviously... As those glaciers melt, I'm too tired for this. As those glaciers melt, those resources become more available, and finally, one of the main reasons to have it is it'll open up strategic shipping lanes to the Arctic, which will be extremely important in the next few dozen years to handle international trade through there, including the famous Northwest Passage, which kinda does exist in a way, but Greenland will be important. Denmark obviously does not want to get rid of it. They don't really control it. It's got its own kind of affairs, but Denmark handles its foreign affairs and its military and a few other economic things. But they also have to pay $800 million to them to try to keep them going each year, which is obviously... I say it too many times. I gotta work on my vocab. Which is a drawdown to having a area the size of Greenland is the cost. And I saw a funny tweet that, if Greenland was just given to the US, then the US should just forgive them for not reaching their NATO quota and defense budget. Just, it's a pretty good idea. But people are thinking this could be like the next Panama Canal or Suez Canal. And I could see this. I could see this being interesting. Trump's not backing down on this. At first, people thought this was a joke, but the U.S. obviously... I hate myself so much. I'm sorry. The U.S. has a huge strategic interest in Greenland, and I hope something goes to where the U.S. can acquire the whole country, maybe eventually. It's not new, like it says before, and a lot of people have talked about. Harry Truman tried buying it for $100 million in gold, and I mean, there's been attempts to buy it in 1867. That didn't go too well, but there is interest there. There's a lot of need there. and I think that this could benefit both Denmark and the U.S. if the U.S. ever ended up buying it. But anyways, this is the end. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope I can record more, and we'll see what happens. Thank you all for watching, and remember to like, comment, subscribe if you'd like to see more of this. This is Alex, and this has been Rage Hunter Gaming.